Greensboro is rich with the arts: paintings, sculptures, music, and dance. Jan Van Dyke is one of the most prominent dancers, dance teachers, and choreographers in the Triad area. Jan, together with John Gamble, started and is the artistic director of the Dance Project, a nonprofit organization which encompasses the Van Dyke Dance Group, the North Carolina Dance Festival, and the School at City Arts. We're going to be speaking with Jan as she tells us about herself, her love of dance, her time in Greensboro, and the theater Greensboro will have to look forward to in the near future. Let's listen to Jan as she tells us about her journey to Greensboro.
I'm Jan Van Dyke, and I came to Greensboro in 1986 to go to graduate school in education to get my doctorate. And before that, I spent time in New York and in San Francisco, but my hometown is Washington, D.C. And that's where I grew up as a kid and trained. And then I kept going away, like to New York and coming back to Washington, going away and coming back. And I realized that Washington, I felt very comfortable there, and it allowed me to do things I didn't dare to do in places like New York. Also, I had new people, so I could make a living there. So it became my sort of go-to place, and then I would go out into the world and discover.
It's apparent that she has a passion for dancing. In Washington, D.C., her drive for dancing grew and took form.
I was one of these little girls who just wanted to be a dancer. I couldn't imagine a better life than being a dancer. So all through school, elementary and high school, I danced. And when it came time to go to college, I only considered colleges that offered me a dance degree, which at that time there were not very many, were two. One was Bennington and one was Wisconsin. And I went to Wisconsin partly because I had high school, I'd been a cheerleader and liked football and so on. And so carried that through. I don't think that was the best choice, actually, professionally, but I had a really good time at Wisconsin.
Okay, cool. And you spent some time in New York City as well, right?
I spent about 6 years on and off, so 3 different times, covered about 6 years.
Well, they say go big or go home. If you want to go big in the arts, any arts, you go to New York City.
New York is like the center of our field. It's the center of the arts in the world, some say. So it felt like I had to go there, and I had to acquaint myself with what was happening there and see why it happened there and not other places. And it was very educational to go there. I could go to a different concert every night. I took 2 classes a day, and talked to people who were sort of making it happen. And because I didn't like living in New York, and I wanted it to happen other places. So eventually I went back to Washington and started a school in performance space in Washington for about 10 years, and left that, went back to New York again just for fun, and, to San Francisco, and then taught for a term in London. And then I decided I have to get serious because I'm getting older and I'm not going to be a performer for the rest of my life. And what am I going to do? So graduate school seemed like the right thing.
Where did you end up going to graduate school?
UNCG. And that's why I came to Greensboro. And I got a doctorate in 3 years, full-time study. And I just had a great time. It was great.
What attracted you? What drew you to Greensboro and attracted you to that
that's
school?
That's a good question. And then the answer is people that I knew were here. I knew the person who was then the head of the dance program, John Gamble. And it was, close enough to Washington. It didn't seem that different. It was a good size, manageable city. For a place I was only going to be for 3 years, I could handle it pretty well.
Any artists, particularly dancers, will tell you it isn't easy getting by. The money you get isn't always consistent, and your next gig isn't always guaranteed.
Freelance artistry is a challenge, and it really well, you have to leave sort of half your brain available for the next job while you're trying to make your art with the other half. And so it's like politics. It's who you know, who has money to bring artists in this semester. Usually it's colleges, but it's not always. Sometimes it's community centers and so on. And you're trying to keep a group of dancers together, so that means you have to keep them busy. So it's a struggle. It's constant. But I loved it, and so that's what it takes. I think you have to love it.
If you are brave, daring, talented, and skilled enough to tackle a world filled with dancing, learning steps, and chasing gigs to perhaps make that next rent payment, or fulfill some sort of undying need to keep dancing,
be sure you love it enough, because it will devour you, really. And then if you do love it, don't give up, because it's very hard. They're very hard, and a lot of people, it takes 2 or 3 years to get yourself rolling. So if you have a parent or a friend or a fiance or somebody who will help you by, sharing their apartment or in some way helping you, that's by far the best situation.
After she earned her doctoral in curriculum and educational foundations from UNCG, she made a transition more into the teaching world at UNCG.
UNCG is a public university, which means that it's designed to educate the people of North Carolina. And we do have auditions in the dance department, but those are just to screen out people who are hopeless as movers, not going to ever make it as dancers. And then anybody who really wants to do it can come in and do it. And but a lot of these kids come from little tiny towns, and they've not had very good training, and they had no idea what it meant to be a dancer. So it seemed to me like one of the first things we had to do was to show them what a dancer's life really is like, and maybe they wouldn't like it. So at one point there, for about 10 years, I was every year taking kids up to New York to see shows and take class. First of all, to show them that they're probably just as good dancers as the New York dancers. They can keep up with those classes. But also that New York has good dance and bad dance in it, and that it's a very different living situation than Greensboro or Goldsboro or Winston-Salem or any place around here. So that they had to realize that if they wanted to live well in New York, they had to be a millionaire. And things like that, just the reality of the world and the art world.
During the 1980s, Greensboro had an economic downturn. There wasn't much opportunity, and the dance community was no exception.
Coming in, I was a doctoral candidate. I was completely overwhelmed. I buried myself in my studies for 3 years, so I couldn't tell you what the state of the arts was here. I don't know. But once I decided to stay, and when I came, I had no intention of staying in the South. I wouldn't want to stay in the South. And, but I did, and then I started looking around, and there were not many good things about Greensboro for young, aspiring artists, except in the universities. The universities had these wonderful facilities for performance and studios and big buildings for art majors and all kinds of equipment for making film. And you just couldn't find that on the outside here. And that hasn't changed that much. So when I retired about 2 years ago. I decided that there was one thing that I'd like to do for Greensboro, and that is to give it a theater, give it a theater that I would use. I mean, they're talking about GPAC, the Performing Arts Center, which is a wonderful thing, but I will never perform there. My work will never be shown there because we don't do that kind of work. Our optimal audience size is about between 200 and 400, somewhere in there. And they're talking 3,000 seats. So So we wanted a space that would house 200 to 400 people comfortably, and yet also be available to the city for receptions and music concerts and other things that didn't need that the special rake that dance needs. Dance is a problem child in lots of ways because it has very particular needs. It needs a particular kind of floor for the dancers to dance well on, not hurt themselves. And it also needs a rake for the audience so that they can see the dancers' feet. If they can't see the dancers' feet, then they're not seeing the dance. They're just seeing bobbing heads going around. So when we started talking about investing in this space, we went around a few times about those issues, whether it could actually be a dance theater because of those specific needs. But it will be a dance theater.
Oh, where did that idea originate from?
Which I did.
The one for the Cultural Arts Center theater.
Well, I've been looking around downtown for the past couple of years at possible spaces because there are lots of vacant spaces downtown. But you need a space that has high ceilings and no pillars, and that people could walk up to easily. And there were two places that I really got excited about and got as far as thinking about making an offer, and then something collapsed, something went wrong. So I was talking to Tom Fillion, who has been in this building for years and years, and he said, well, have you thought about room 100 here? And I said, yeah, and in fact I had talked to City Arts about it a while ago. But they said, well, it belongs to Parks and Rec, and you'd have to go through them, and you'd have to, mostly they were very discouraging because they felt like I would have to, couldn't specify, this is going to be a dance theater if I gave money for it. So he said, well, let's see what we could get together. And I, at that point in my life, my father had just died, which was a sad occasion, but he left me more money than I knew what to do with. And as a person who's lived as an artist all my life, I really didn't know what to do with it. So spending it on a theater seemed like the right thing.
You don't like being rich long, do you?
No.
All right, cool. So you said this is not going to be as just specifically for dance?
Not just dance. It's going to be like a black box space. So when we talked to the city council, they were interested in it being useful for big receptions and even rent it out so the city could make money for weddings and things like that. I don't care about those things so much. I do want the city to be able to make money on it so that they don't regret this choice. And they have to have enough money coming in to pay at least one salary.
Well, that's at least one job provided here in Greensboro, and maybe many more. The venue will seat 400 to 500 people and will provide a stage where local arts groups can perform. Modern lighting and sound will be added to enhance the experience. Wait, is $1 million going to cover all this?
$1 million is not going to do it. Mm-hmm. Partly because of these very expensive seats that we need, and the expensive floor that we need. It would do it if we just wanted a multi-purpose room.
And this is an opportunity for other nonprofits and other arts organizations as well?
Absolutely. So, I mean, people can rehearse in there and perform in there. All kinds of music can perform in there. You can seat up over, 500 people if you don't need a rake. Do you know what a rake is? Does everybody know? It's the slant of the audience. Most theaters have the audience on a slant. And either the stage is then lifted up or it's down below, so you're looking down on the stage. If there's no slant, then very quickly the heads in front of you start getting in the way.
We've already got the Carolina Theater and other theaters in Greensboro, as well as the up-and-coming Greensboro Performing Arts Center. Will this take away from anything that they're doing?
No. It's purposely designed to complement them rather than compete with them. So it's 500 or less. The Carolina is 900, I think. And GPAC is talking 3,000. So I don't think there'll be any problems.